In a previous video regarding the latest update of the software, we showed how the software can now automatically split satin stitches. And I wanted to take time to show you how you can utilize the split satin feature for any satin stitch that you create that might not have necessarily been automatically split with the design that you're working with, or with the satin stitch. So let me go ahead and I'm going to create a satin stitch, and I'm just going to make it not very wide on one end and a little bit wider on the other. And let's see, when you select this, you can see that the software actually auto split this satin stitch for me based on the settings that I have in the software. So if I click and drag over here, you can see I like to work in metric, and so I'm in inches right now. All I do is right mouse click on the ruler that's bordering the design page, and I select on metric, and I'm now in millimeters. You can see as I click and drag over this area that it's 7 millimeters wide, and that's what I've told it, that any satin stitch wider than 7 millimeters to automatically create a split. And the split takes place right here. You can see it's a feathered split. I love how the software works with these splits here. As you can see, when it's going from this side, it drops a stitch right here, comes up, comes down, drops a stitch over here on this side, so it's not in direct line with the other one, and it kind of randomly creates that so that you don't create this crease line in the middle. And that's a really helpful thing. And so let me go zoom back out a little bit. So what are the options that you have? Let's say that you don't want that split to be in there. You can come over to your column tab in the properties box when you have this satin stitch selected, and inside of here you will see split satin type. It's set on random, and that's where you get this random right now. I can click on it, and let's say that I don't want one, so I can hit none and hit apply, and you can see that it just took that split out of that satin. Let's go back into the column tab. Let's say that I want a percent split, and let's say I want it split 50%, down the middle when it does a split. And you'll notice that right here in this deactivate splitting if the length is less than 7 millimeters. So what that is saying is that any part of the design that is less than 7 millimeters wide for that satin stitch, it will not split it. It will not create a split until you've reached 7 millimeters or greater. And so I can change that to 5, but let's go ahead and keep it at 7, and I have it at 50% split, and I'm hitting apply. So what it did is every area that was wider than 7 millimeters, so if I come in here and I measure here, you'll see that it's 7 millimeters. It started creating a split because everything to the right of this one is larger than 7 millimeters wide. Everything to the left is less than 7 millimeters. So let's go ahead and go back into our properties box. Now let's say we wanted to do a split after 4 millimeters, and notice how this changes. Now it does a split down here because this is 4 millimeters wide. So seeing this again, I can change this from percent to random and keep it at 4, and it will continue to start splitting it randomly at 4 millimeters wide. And if I come back in here, I can do an absolute amount. I can tell it that I want a split to take place, absolutely split distance of 0.8 millimeters. Let's change that to 2 millimeters. I'm going to hit apply, and what you're going to find is it's going to be 2 millimeters from this side, from one side in, and 2 millimeters in. So it's kind of a neat little feature that we have here. And let me go back to a percent, and let's click on both sides and hit apply. And so all that's doing is creating it from both sides. It's a little bit harder to see with a percent, but you can see it a great deal with this random, and so it's randomly splitting it from both sides every 4 millimeters. So let's go ahead and click off of that, and let's instead change it to uncheck the both sides, and you'll see how this pattern will change. So it just makes it different in how it splits the design. But it's a really powerful thing. The reason that it's there is for dealing with wide satin stitches, because like as stated in the previous video, when you're creating a satin stitch on like a garment that you're going to wear, you typically don't want to go wider than 7 millimeters from one jump from one side to the other, because it's so much easier for that to snag. And so if you randomly split it at 7 millimeters, you will find that you'll have a lot less chance for it to snag, and it allows you to make this satin stitch a little wider, because we stated in the other video as well that you can only go so wide with the satin stitch with a satin stitch, because at some point your machine will actually do a trim between each point instead of actually putting in the stitch. They will only do satin stitches so wide. So this allows you to actually make a wider satin stitch because it's going to split it in two. And so it does allow you to stretch the parameters or the width of a satin stitch even more. So it's a really nice feature, and I love the random effect that was just added. You do see this a lot of times in like flowers, like petals of flowers. You'll see a lot of random edge satin stitches utilized, and the reason for that is because satin stitches really pop more, and so if you can utilize a satin stitch, it's going to give that flower a greater effect, and by making it in that random form, it's going to feather it, and it's not going to create a harsh line that you see really easily. Like if you use this percent, you would really see this line after the digitizing, or after it's sewn out. Random feathers it, makes it a little less noticeable. So just wanted to take time to show you how the random split worked and how you can apply it to any satin stitch, and just play around with the settings so you can get familiar with how it works. It's pretty simple. It's all done right here in this area, and play around with it, and it'll help you stretch the limits of your satin stitches. Hope you enjoy.